Hey guys, welcome back to Smoky Oak Barbecue Company. As a follow-up to our last video, we're going to continue our backyard butcher series, so to speak. We're going to show you today how we process a deer ham to get the best cuts, in my opinion, out of it. We're going to get some steaks, we're going to get some ground, we're going to get the shanks out to make barbecue. It's not that hard to do. Anybody can do this. Like I said before, I am not a professional butcher, but I've been doing this my whole life, and I've actually expanded my methods as I've gone along and learned more from other people and so on and so forth. So let's get to cutting. All right, so we have a nice clean deer ham here. The first thing that we're going to want to do is to get rid of a bunch of this silver skin and all the fat and the stuff like that off the surface of the meat. Now, you don't have to get it all off. The goal here is, obviously this deer ham is made up of several muscle groups. And what we're going to do is we're going to get enough of this off that we can start to separate those muscle groups. And then once we get those separated, then we can start making our various cuts out of those separated chunks of meat. That's the way that I go about doing it. And so that's what we're going to do here. But I usually start, I'm going to turn it around there. I usually start by just peeling up some of that silver skin and start to just cut it off there with your knife. And there again, you're going to want to have at least one or two good sharp knives. I like a fillet type knife because it gives me the ability to, really get in and make really fine cuts. So what we'll do is just kind of go around. You got to feel your way around it. Like, right here on this surface right there's a lot of fat. And there's also a lot of silver skin. And you want to make these cuts as close to the surface as you possibly can. That way, you save the most meat. So we'll just go around here and start trimming this out. And then once I kind of get this first layer of stuff off of the surface, then I'm going to go about separating the muscle groups. Now you can see right here, I already have a muscle group right there that's starting to show the separation once I remove that silver skin. So, and I'm trying to get a good camera angle so I can not have my hands block it, but you can see there how I can go in here just with my hands, don't even have to have a knife. And I can start to pull that apart. So I'm going to get that started, and then I like to flip it over and kind of get some of this stuff off this side as well, and that will help the separation also. And when people talk about venison tasting gamey or doesn't taste good or whatever, this is the reason. People leave the fat and they leave all this silver skin and sinew and whatever else on there. And I mean, it just creates a bad situation as far as your venison's concerned. You want it to be as clean as possible. So we're just going to keep on. So right there's a prime example of a piece that's not quite good enough to cut or grind, but it would be good enough to marinate and do something with. Same thing with this chunk right here. So you're starting to get into some really good clean meat right there. This part, if you wanted to, you could come across that with a knife and take that silver skin off. And it's a fine line as to how tedious that you want to be. Me personally, I would just cut that off, add it to my barbecue pile. This I would put in my grinding pile. That is a perfect piece that you want to grind. Now right there, you can see a big muscle group right there that we can separate. So I'm going to go in there and start cutting that. And really what you're going to find too is as you make your cuts and you start making the separation, this entire thing will basically you're just cutting around the leg bone is what you're doing. And I mean, you literally could go in here and just slowly cut your way around and remove the leg bone, and then you've got all of your meat that you can separate out and, you know, take your different cuts from. If you have dogs or you have friends with dogs, I don't have a dog, but my brother has a couple of dogs. You can take these leg bones, they still have a little bit of meat on them, and you can smoke them and make really good dog treats. We're starting to get separation of several muscle groups. This one is a big one. Turn around so you can see there. You come right underneath there. And go back to work over here. You start getting into these shanks. See, like right here is a lot of inner tissue fat. It's kind of bloody there. Don't want that. Cut that out. This makes an incredibly good cut right here. Separate it right there. And I go slow. I mean, you could, as you do it more, you can get faster, but I tend to want to make this as clean as possible. This big shank right here, it is tough, but it actually grinds pretty good. So if you want to cut that up into grind, you could do that. The shank that's right up against the bone, that is your best part to make your barbecue with, because it is super tough and doesn't grind very well. Like this is a pretty good piece of grind right there. I would want to get rid of that tendon. So get rid of that. We'll put this over here in our grinding pile. Still working down our leg bone. And once you know, if you want to just go ahead and get that bone out of there, just cut through your shanks. And you're going to want to cut around this knuckle right here where the leg bends. It's kind of tough. As you can see here, we have just nearly removed the leg bone from everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting this shank out of there. You can see I've got it butterflied open. So now it's just a matter of going around and separating it from the rest of the leg. So right there is a good piece. And then this is the back side that I want to keep all in one piece. So there's that one. And then, I mean, there's a little bit of meat here and there on the, you know, I mean, if you want to really get tedious and add this to your grind pile, which I do, I don't want to waste anything. Or if you want to smoke these leg bones and give them to your favorite dog, your dog will be appreciative. All right, so we're going to set that to the side, and we're going to get back to work over here on our major muscle groups. And there again, as you can see, you have this big piece of meat that is, you know, it's just all muscle groups that are connected to one another. So you just go about the business of separating them. You know, you could make that into one big roast if you wanted to. Me personally, I'm gonna cut steaks out of that. That's actually two muscle groups. If you look right there, I can come right underneath here. You can see that separation line right there. Get it started, and you can just cut through it. Right there is a wonderful piece of meat. That is a wonderful piece of meat. And then we have a couple more separations that we can make here. This almost makes 1 or 2 good fillet steaks by itself. You could take and just clean that up. All right, so that's pretty clean. I'll go ahead and finish that up later. But now the only thing that's left is, you know, this nice big chunk of meat. And there's one more muscle group on this end right here that we'll separate. You got that, and that's it. This is a big, huge, nice, beautiful piece that obviously needs a lot of cleaning up, but we can get a lot of ground and we can get a lot of steaks out of that. Okay, so when it comes to cleaning up some of this stuff, it's pretty simple. You can see that silver skin right there. That needs to go. This is where a real fine fillet knife comes in handy, because you can just go right underneath there and cut it as close as you possibly can to the surface of the meat. And a sharp knife is very important. But that right there is the reason that your venison will be tough and it will taste gamey. Is if you leave that on there, that is a big no-no. So you want to cut that off as cleanly as you possibly can. And, there again, like right there, I cut more than I wanted to. So once I get that off, I'll just use my fillet knife like I was filleting a crappie and go right down the silver skin and get this good piece of meat off there. Put that in my pile that I'm going to grind. I'm going to come right down that edge right off this side. Get rid of that junk. I do mean junk. Right there we have a really small layer of junky stuff. Get that off. This little edge right here. Best thing to do there is just go right down like so. Get that off. Just a little bit right on that edge. We'll just trim that off. That's okay to grind. That's okay to grind. So that side looks pretty clean. Flip it over and look at this side. There's a little bit of fat right there. A little bit of fat right on that edge. All right. So that is about as clean as you can get it. I mean, there might be just a little bit of stuff here and there that we could cut off, but we're basically ready to cut a few steaks off of this big piece. Okay, so when I go about the business of cutting my steaks, the first thing I want to do is I want it nice and squared up, So like these end pieces, go ahead and cut that off to square it off. That is wonderfully clean, beautiful, beautiful venison that we can use for grinding. So we'll put that there, and then we'll do the same down here. Just trim that off. There again, beautiful grinding meat. We'll come over here on this edge. We'll trim that off. Beautiful, clean, ground meat. So now, we will go about cutting a few steaks off of this roast. And the way I do it is, I look at this and I like my steaks thick. I don't care anything about a little thin steak that's this thick. I like them thick. So to me, I'm gonna get one right there. I'm gonna get one right there. I'm gonna get 3 out of this. And you could say, well, that's a waste of meat. That's too thick. Hey, do it however you want. But I like, come right there, beautiful venison fillet. Come right here, beautiful venison fillet. Right there, beautiful venison fillet. All right, so when we start working on some of this other stuff, you know, there again, when we get our little pieces off the edges, I put them in as grinding. And this is some really good lean ground meat. We have a beautiful round roast there that we can cut some steaks out of. Put these steaks to the side over here. Let this one take front and center. You can see a lot of, you know, silver skin on this edge over here. So we'll go ahead and try to get right underneath the skin there and cut that out as much as possible. And inevitably, you're going to wind up right there with some pretty good meat, you know, on the back side of your silver skin. That you probably want to put that in your barbecue pile instead of just throwing it away. It depends. If you can get it really, really close, like I guess I did pretty good there, that, to me, that's not worth saving. But sometimes you'll make that cut and you'll wind up with way more, you know, good venison on the back side of that than what you really want. So that, in that instance, it's better to save that and put it in your barbecue pile. Make a cut like that. Now that is probably worth putting in the barbecue pile. There's a little bit of a muscle group separation right there. So you probably want to just go ahead and trim that off. That's going to make beautiful ground right there. We'll go ahead and cube that up so it'll go in the grinder all nice and pretty. So what I would do is I would look at this and cut them long ways. There's a nice fillet. I probably would just trim it off like that. Put a little bacon wrap on there, beautiful. And then we'll cut one right here. We'll just take and trim that steak just so it's kind of a little bit more even. Like that. Put that in the grind. These go to the steak pile. And I believe I can get 2 more out of here. So I'll come right there. Cut that. Look at that. That is a beautiful venison steak. Okay, so moving right along, we have come to our biggest piece that we have as far as muscle groups are concerned on this deer ham. And you can really get some good cuts out of this. So we're going to go around the edges, cut all the bad out, get it as clean as we can. I'll put that in the barbecue pile. Another bad thing today is it's pretty warm here in Georgia, and I wanted to do this out here outside because the lighting inside is not as good, and plus I just like to be outside. There's a muscle group right here that we're separating. That right there, you almost have 2 nice steaks right there. In fact, we'll go ahead and deal with that one first. So we'll clean silver skin off. We'll go right down this edge right here. That is some beautiful ground. Get that off. That. Cut that tip off there. Man, I don't know if I'll do anything else to that one. That's a beautiful steak. And then we get back to the business of cleaning the junk off this, off the edges. That's definitely barbecue. I mean, it's pretty clean, you know. Otherwise, there's a little bit of silver skin and some fat right there. There's definitely some silver skin right on that edge right there that needs to go. Like that. barbecue material. And then I just come right here, cut these edges off. It's going to go in the grinder. And man, look at this. So now we're going to cut steaks out of this. I'm just going to go right here, fillet. 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 Thick fillet. Beautiful. Another nice thick fillet. And then we wind up with a fillet of its own. We'll just square it off and put that right there. These go in the steak pile. So how about that, guys? We wound up with 16 fillets, 16 steaks out of that one ham. So if we can hold serve on the next ham, then that's going to mean we're going to have 30 plus steaks out of this deer. That's a lot of good eating. I got this big old pile of meat that I'm going to grind. We got our barbecue pile over here. And this is just junk that we're going to throw away. So that's a pretty good yield from one deer ham. Okay guys, so that's our rendition of how to do a ham. Make sure you check us out on a follow-up video. We're going to show you how to do the back straps, the tenderloins, and the shoulders, and whatever else is left. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with those videos coming up.